Detroit
invites you to
Let ML
do it. The Corpse That Took a Powder, another adventure of
ML Elric.
Personal notice. Danger is my stock and trade. If life's tossing curves you can't handle, you got a job for me.
ML Elric, see?
Write full details.
I need somebody's help so badly. I'm desperate. And it's signed
Sean Windsor.
Afton Apartments 4A.
All right,
LZ.
we'd better get on our bicycle.
You asked interrogative too much around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Albert?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric, joined by Mark Fellshauer, our damsel in distress, Sean Windsor, Matt Jennings, the editor of Soft Magazine, Joy Zuber, who keeps things running as things get complicated with all these different parts we're pulling together. And we have a special guest this week. You know her, or at least women around the world know her as that woman with the perfect hair. I've always found the lipstick very appealing as well. And I say that with respect because I play hockey with her husband, who used to be a bouncer, who wrestles and does judo. So I say that strictly as admiration and not with any inappropriate ardor. So Stacey Hashy, who you've seen on TV doing signing for the mayor, for the governor, and at other times in court for horrible felons and people like that. So we're going to talk to Stacey in a minute. Although I guess when you're doing it, they're not felons yet because they're innocent till proven guilty. So we're going to get into all of that with Stacey after we get the show in full fury. We are brought to you today by Altus Beer. They are our Facebook sponsor, and we really appreciate them being a part of the show. Let me tell you a little something about Altus. It's the original Detroit lager that's making a comeback here in the greatest city in the world. Altus is the do anything, anytime with anyone beer. I always try to make sure to have some of it stocked at home. It's in the garage staying cool. Pretty soon I'm going to move it inside. And the fun fact about Altus is it only takes 6 of them to make anyone a 10. Now, it's great on tap. You can get it at bars and restaurants when they reopen. But the fact that we have a lockdown doesn't mean you have to do without your Altus. You can find it at stores, better stores throughout the area. And to find out where that is, you can go to altus.beer. Let them know what your store is, and they will try and get it there. Let your store owner know that you would like to have Altus on the shelves, and we will do our best to make that happen. A lot of things that started here in Detroit went away, but boy, am I glad Altus is back. It's a lager that packs a punch and is seriously smooth and delicious. So go pick some cans up today and enjoy it by yourself or with a friend who's at least 6 feet away. Go to altus.beer and find the location nearest you. I promise this beer is insanely good, and you'll be thanking the soul of Detroit for this suggestion. I also want to welcome a new sponsor onto the show. We are very grateful. And now, Luke Nowacki is an official sponsor of the entire Red Shovel Network. So, Luke, thank you for stepping up. We know times are tough in the financial services business, but this is really a time for amateurs to step to the side and let the professionals take over. The volatility appears to be back, and if you have concerns over your investments, would like to discuss your strategy, give Luke Nowacki a call at 248-663-4748 or email at lnowacki@jhnetwork.com. That's LNOWACKI@jhnetwork.com. Luke has been doing this for nearly 19 years and has helped clients through the dot-com collapse in 2000, the 9/11 downturn, the 2003 downturn, and the 02-03 downturn, and the housing and financial collapse of 08-09. And he can help you presently. He will make it all about you, sweetheart. So give Luke a call. We'll have information on how to reach him.
You just jumped on your outro there. Did you know
What's that?
You just stepped over your outro. You told me what the outro was, and I fired the disclaimer.
Oh, you know what?
Are you changing your outro?
Nowacki. He's waiting for your call at 248-663-4748.
Once again,
he will make it All about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
What a total mess.
You know, I did have the coronavirus, so maybe you could cut me a break.
Like a month ago.
Well, they say it can come back.
Oh, so you're saying you have it again. Great.
Well, you want this microphone?
No, I don't want it.
Okay, we'll steam clean it. So I was reading the New York Times a while ago, and there was a Nobel Prize-winning author who's been working on a novel about plague times, and he's been doing a lot of research. And I wanted to share with everybody a little uplifting story about what we can learn from plague novels over the last half a millennium. Not because I'm some sort of bookish intellectual snob, but because I think we're hearing a lot about people wanting to rush back, and we're trying to forget what science is telling us. And one of the things that I truly believe is that we can learn a lot from history, and that we have a big problem when we don't. So here's what Orhan Pamuk says, that after reviewing literally centuries worth of literature. Throughout human literary history, what makes pandemics alike is not mere commonality of germs and viruses, but that our initial responses are always the same. The first response of the outbreak of a pandemic has always been denial. National and local governments have always been late to respond and have distorted facts and manipulated figures to deny the existence of the outbreak. Boy, does that sound familiar. The 1630 plague in Milan spread rapidly because the restrictions introduced were insufficient, their enforcement was lax, and fellow citizens didn't heed them. Much of the literature of plague and contagion diseases presents the carelessness, incompetence, and selfishness of those in power as the sole instigator of the fury of the masses. So right now we've seen some masses who have been pretty furious in Lansing, and I'm very curious when we get to Stacy to find out how she feels about going into a situation like that, because she's a very demure professional woman. I don't think she packs her AR-15 when she goes to knock on the governor's very large wooden door. The author, Mr. Pamuk, says, I am reminded of the adage about pandemics and plagues, that those who are afraid live longer. So there's some advice. Not from Dr. Fauci, not from Dr. Birx, not from a stable genius or anybody else, but from our ancestors, from people who have experienced varieties of this over the last hundreds of years. And while we're all in a rush to get back to things, I kind of like that last note, that those who are a little bit afraid tend to live a little bit longer. Because as we said when we first started talking about whether or not the media was overhyping the coronavirus on this show more than a month ago, it's better to be safe than sorry, and it's better to be alive than hacking up a lung before they put you in a freezer truck. So I'm off my soapbox, but folks, please, let's be careful, mainly because we need the downloads. You want to kill yourself, you listen to Joe Rogan listeners, you do whatever the hell you want, but we want you to be back. We want you to stay alive.
Not that this is the great debate, but is the argument really about the science, or is it about how many deaths are acceptable to open up the economy now?
Well, aren't they linked? Because if you listen to the science, they're saying we're going too fast. Dr. Birx
science is always
really
going to
contradicted a lot of what we're hearing from the White House and saying all these plans to reopen, they're too hasty.
Oh, I understand that, but science is always going to. They want it to be zero. I'm just saying it depends on who the deaths are, doesn't it? Who's dying? It's a risk assessment, and it sucks, and nobody wants to admit that, especially people in public policy, but at some point, depending on who the deaths are, you can't affect everybody else.
Well, we have heard studies, and I think there was a dude at Yale who I think mostly those Yale types are considered pretty liberal, but he was saying that that something we've heard, I think, from the president and from other people that, listen, we're going to have deaths that are related to being locked up, suicide, depression, business failures, people who have long-term mental problems because they got so bummed out or they weren't able to get the treatment they need to get back on the right path. So there is a balancing act.
Yeah.
And I guess all I'm saying is I don't know what the right mix is.
I'm gonna
play it safe.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's hard. No one really knows.
Until the Altus runs out.
No one knows where that balance is, or, everybody has an opinion on it, scientist or otherwise, and that really is the problem, that nobody can come along, and now it's become politicized, so it's a total mess now. That's just one idiot on a podcast's opinion.
You're not an idiot.
I can play one.
Well, you're not the idiot on this podcast. I am.
Hardly.
All I'll say is those who are afraid live longer. So I'm going with that. I hear the voice of history, and it's not calling me to a grave.
Didn't former Governor, New Jersey Governor Christie, last night or yesterday say we need to get back out there? People are going to die. We have to accept that. So that's probably one end of the spectrum.
Kind of what I mean.
Right?
Yeah.
He's also the guy who went back out to the beach when he closed them for everybody else.
You're right.
So,
Right, exactly.
In fact, I think there were a few people trying to roll him into the water, and he just said, "I'm just tanning. Don't worry about it." Like I normally eat this much krill.
It's not nice.
No, it's mean.
I know people thought I was going for plankton, but I brought krill out there.
Yeah, nice change.
We like to keep you on your toes here on the Soul of Detroit.
What are you talking about? I think you're getting a little stir crazy.
Yeah, no, I am. And I
should put a tie on. Tell me what the tie is first before you blather on about whatever.
So first of all, this is one of my sweet skinny ties, but you can see I'm also paying tribute to the dangers out there. I got to bounce at 1:30 to get to the mayor's press conference's daily briefing. So I took a shower and put on some clean clothes. So
okay.
So special, yeah. You thought it was for you, and maybe for Stacy.
Well, I did. I thought we were going on a date later, so I thought maybe that's why you were doing.
That's why Sean's dressed up.
That's right. It's just a date with. Yeah, Sean, are those clean socks?
No, I'm in the clothes that we're going to watch a nice Jennifer Aniston romantic comedy later.
God, that sounds terrible.
I want to be comfortable.
Wow. Well, hopefully you loaded up on the Jergens before they shut the stores. So before we go to a guest who is way too sophisticated to be brought down to our level, let me tell you a little bit about another fine professional woman who's out there trying to help make your life better, and that is Lindsay Broadwell. If being locked in made you realize your house is way too small, then it's time to call our new realtor sponsor, Lindsay Broadwell. When it's time to move into a new house, whether you're buying, selling, or both, you need to contact Lindsay Broadwell. Your house is one of the most valuable investments, and that's why you need an agent you can trust that knows the business inside and out. Lindsay started her career at Hall Financial, and now she's an expert in real estate. Lindsay will make sure you get the most out of your house and that everything goes smoothly by finding you a new home that fits your lifestyle. Buyers, sellers, especially first-time buyers, make sure you contact Lindsay at BroadwellHomes.com or 248-767-7767. She's a licensed realtor at RE/MAX Nexus. That's BroadwellHomes.com. Let Lindsay know ML sent you. And when you buy that new place and you need to finance it, well, David Hall and Hall Financial are there for you. They care about the community, and that's why the team at Hall Financial is working from home around the clock to help people save money by refinancing. That's right. If you need to save money, you need to find some money, it may be right there in your own cash flow. Just get a better deal. Get some lower interest rates and keep more of that money in your pocket. It's a great time to look at your options, and that's why many people are refinancing right now. If you haven't done so in the last year, Hall Financial is here to help you. If you're worried about coronavirus, don't. Homes can be appraised without someone stepping foot inside your house. Appraisers are doing drive-by appraisals. Hall Financial Service is the fastest in the business. That's why they have nearly 1,500 five-star reviews for Michigan homeowners. And I've given them 2 of those reviews because they've done 2 deals for me, and they were great. Go to your webpage, our webpage, and click on the logo to get started, or call 248-308-5000. Hall Financial, lower payments, better options, more personal attention. 248-308-5000 and MLS 146-7435. And later in the show, we're going to let you know we have a fun new program for you to help sponsor the show. And to get something out of it, we call it Cami Soul, based on the Cameo that you've heard Drew and Mike talk about so much. That's going to be later on in the show. If you're a Facebook watcher, we really appreciate you being out there. Please share the link. But you're going to have to listen to find out how to get in on this, as well as to hear Room 7609. It's base month in Room 7609. Those are some features that are exclusive to our audio downloads. So please keep watching and please keep listening. And now For the first time in the media, we will hear the voice of Stacey Hashy. Stacey, no need to sign, but let us hear those dulcet tones. It's great to have you here on ML Solar Detroit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, just so we're clear, with your husband listening, I didn't have you in the English sense where you're a guest on this show. I just don't want to get pounded into submission or any other form by the formidable captain.
Well, I'm sure that if he was standing here right now, he's upstairs kind of wrangling the kids so that this can happen right now. But if he was here, he'd tell you that he's got his price. So just, negotiate with him later.
Okay, I think he learned that from his days bouncing at the clubs. But tell us a little bit about how your day works. You're able to join us now, but you have small children. Sometimes, as I understand it, you kind of get the Paul Revere thing where like, okay, you're going to Detroit, you're going to Lansing. I see you with the mayor's briefing sometimes. Mostly now, you seem to be upgraded to I guess who they're calling Big Gretch. I would call her Governor Whitmer, but I just don't like to get in any trouble. She's kind of big on those executive orders.
She is. And it's funny because I actually started interpreting the governor's press conferences before, and then my name got thrown into the ring for the mayor's. So I was actually driving home from Lansing, finishing a press conference with the governor, when I got a call saying that they were looking for an interpreter for Mayor Duggan 4:00 that afternoon. So I didn't even go home. I just went straight to Detroit and the police headquarters there and picked up a second gig.
Hopefully you took care of some of those warrants while you were there too.
I did. I was able to pay them all off. So we're free and clear, which is why I can appear here today, because now there's no way that they're not looking for me anymore.
With this Zoom, we can't tell whether you're wearing a tether, but we'll take your word for it.
Watching the...
I hide it with my pants.
Well, every day, Governor has... Well, it seems like every day, not every day, but there's a lot of press conferences on TV and we're always watching them. And I cannot tell you how many people have said, why isn't Stacey wearing a mask? And why is she so close? Especially when you used to do it back in the governor's office. That was kind of a weird setup. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Have you been tested? Does the governor get tested?
I have not been tested. I do wear a mask when I'm not on camera. So the whole time I'm around other people, I am wearing a mask. It's not until I step behind the governor. And just FYI for everybody, I actually have a tape mark on the ground of where I have to stand, and it is measured that I am 6 feet away. So even though the camera angle may not look like I'm 6 feet away, I am technically 6 feet away. But because there are a lot of linguistic aspects of American Sign Language that are on the face, if I were to wear a mask, it would cut out a good portion of the ability to understand me. It would be like somebody trying to talk with a gag in their mouth. And you're obviously not going to understand them very clearly. So if you take away the bottom half of my face, there's a lot of the language aspect that gets removed. So it would not be as effective for the deaf community if I was wearing a mask.
Is that one of the biggest conceptions that hearing people have about signing, is that it's just all in the hands? Or what are some of the biggest misconceptions?
One of the biggest misconceptions, which I hear all the time, is just FYI, it is not universal. What we use here in America is very different than what we use in other countries, or what is used in other countries. And one of the way American Sign Language was formed was actually developed by a French man. So the grammatical aspect, and I'm sorry if I'm nerding out on language, but it's actually backwards. So it's more, if anybody speaks French or Spanish. So for example, we would say the black chair, and in sign language we sign chair black, so it's reversed.
And that's how the French speak as well. Yeah. Their adjectives go after the object, so that makes sense. It's in terms of speaking with a gag. Sean occasionally indulges in a ball gag, but we're gonna try and keep it sophisticated. I'm sorry. I'll go back to.
No, I wondered how long it was going to take you to say that, but I am curious, Stacey. Does it surprise you that people don't give you the benefit of the doubt? Not you specifically, but you and other folks that do this, and maybe think, you know what, maybe the camera angle is fooling me. Surely there's a reason she's not wearing a mask. I just don't understand, to Mark's point, or to Mark's question, that so many people want to believe what they want to believe. It's just instead of just saying, hey, there's surely some science and there's some reasons that you just explained it. Does that reaction surprise you, or is it just sort of you write it off as human nature?
I find it surprising, and I find it disappointing. Like, I just feel like we would be so much better if everybody just assumed positive intent. And that just goes across the board. That's for everything. And I feel it's pretty sad and a kind of a sad state of affairs that nobody does anymore. Everybody just assumes that people are doing things for the wrong intentions. And if we all assumed positive intent by everybody else, I feel like we would get through this a lot better.
Well, it's interesting. We live in a world of optics now and how people perceive things. Because you'll see, like NBC Nightly News, every reporter doing a stand-up has a mask on outside, which they really don't need to do. But I think we know why they're doing it. And I think some people sometimes will look at those press conferences and go, they don't have masks on and they want us to wear masks. And, you wonder about that. And I was curious about, like you said, the facial aspect of signing. So I don't know.
And it's also a very controlled environment where we are, where it's all filmed. It's very few people. There's hardly anybody in there, and everybody before you go in, their temperature is taken. And so it is controlled in a sense.
To that point,
but it's not like we're meandering. We're not storming the steps of the Capitol and standing really close to each other as we saw a couple weeks ago.
To that point, watching other press conferences, be it the mayors or Cuomo's out of New York, or even the president's, 2-hour press conferences that he has, we see who's asking the questions. We see the social distancing, but for some reason, we don't see that with Whitmer's, and it's been kind of driving some people a little nuts, wondering who is asking the questions because we don't see them. Who is asking? We assume they're pool reporters, but they don't identify themselves. Some questions seem like maybe they're staged. What information can you provide on that?
Unfortunately, very little, just because I'm not involved in that aspect. There are always a couple reporters in there who are almost always impossible to hear as I'm standing up there. So the struggle is real for that as an interpreter aspect goes. But from my understanding, there's usually, I don't know, 2 to 3 reporters in there. And they're, as far as I know, they're asking whatever questions may be emailed to them, I'm assuming. I have no idea.
Yeah. So one thing that the governor doesn't do that the mayor does that I think is a good idea is it's in a big room, so you don't have to really worry about getting too close to anybody. But now there's a podium with a microphone where the reporters can go up there and ask their question and generally identify themselves, so people listening on either Facebook or on the broadcasts, know who's asking the question. But I can tell you, based on what I know, that there are pool reporters sent in there, because typically we'll have our State House reporter, Paul Egan, who does a great job, send out a note that says, does anybody have a question for the governor? Because I'll either ask it today or I'll pass it along to the pool reporter. But I also have reporters at the Free Press who will say to me, hey, I'm working on something. Can you ask a question of the mayor today? And on the days I can't make it, we pass them through John Roach, who's the mayor's spokesman. But I'm trying to get to more of these so I can ask the questions myself, because really there's no substitute for being able to ask a question and to ask a follow-up. And
that's the problem. The follow-up questions, yeah.
It eliminates some of those questions where it's just like, oh, Governor, you're doing such a great job. Can you tell us how amazing you are? Because a lot of people want to know. I haven't heard too many of those questions, but maybe the dude upstairs heard some of them. And by that, I don't mean God.
Yeah.
I mean...
well, I hear some softball questions.
I'm Jewish. That's my faith.
You don't look Jewish.
That's well, I'm wearing pants.
I will say, though, that another aspect of why they don't necessarily, I'm assuming, don't pan over to the reporters who are asking the questions is because we're practicing social distancing and I'm locked into where I am standing, and that is it. If they were to have a camera over on the reporters, we don't have another interpreter over by the reporters. So anything that happens is not going to be interpreted on the screen. So in order to provide access, it's just easier to keep the interpreter in the shot.
So Stacy, we're doing bass month this month on in our New Wave music feature. One of my favorite bass players of all time was a local guy. He played bass for this band called Horse. And what I liked about him, he's a good bass player, but he had the craziest facial expressions. It was just more fun to watch his face than to really listen to the music. And sometimes you guys, and I know that you have you'll swap out at different points.
Bethany makes great facial expressions. Her eyebrows are very expressive.
Yes, some of this is I think some of us watching who aren't as knowledgeable about this say is this commentary? Are you maybe fighting some sort of gaseous issue? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, and again, it goes back to the facial expression shows intensity. So something that's very serious or more intense, something that's big has a very different expression than something that's really small. Also, the way your eyebrows are changes the intent of the question. So if your eyebrows are up, you're asking a question that would expect a yes/no answer. So you would sign, "Are you going?" And if you wanted a yes/no, "Are you going?" your eyebrows would be up. You don't sign the word "a" like "are." But if you want to know where you're going, your eyebrows go down, and that would indicate you need an answer of where you're going, a WH question. I don't know if that translates or if anybody can kind of follow that. So our eyebrows are a crucial part of the grammar and the understanding. So
have you ever had, because I think you, before the pandemic, you did a lot of work in the courts, right?
Correct.
So have you ever had to sign something where somebody said something and you're like, "Oh, I can't let my eyebrows go up," like, "I know that's bullshit," you know, or "Don't believe that," you know, where you've got to say, "Okay, dial it back.
Yeah, the poker face, you have to kind of learn to control your face and stay as neutral as possible, where there's a lot of things that we've even had situations before where a deaf person has said something, or even a hearing person has said something in court, and you just don't want to say it either way. You don't want to say it out loud, or you don't want to sign it. And it happens to both. And to have to say it and just keep your composure and keep your own opinion out of it sometimes can be a challenge.
Well, to that point, I assume when people find out that you're a translator, they want to know dirty words right away, right? Always.
First question always is, how do you sign da-da-da? We've actually been in a situation before where it was I'll try and keep it vague, a mental health situation. And once the rest of the people in the group realized that we had to sign everything that they said.
Oh boy.
MFR was dropped probably about once every 30 seconds, well, so that the interpreters would have to sign it.
Can you show us that sign for people on Facebook Live?
Do you really want to see it?
Oh, God, yes. More than anything.
Is it appropriate? I don't know. Am I going to get censored?
I'm saying please.
There's no FCC
please
here. And if you could also show us "Oh, no, you didn't," that would be good to have.
Please.
I think you all know, "Oh, no, you didn't." But,
yeah, finger wave.
Motherfucker is a motherfucker.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, think of the word mother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the sign for mom. Just FYI.
Great thing about having.
I'm in trouble now for showing everybody the dirty signs.
Yeah, see, for me, the sign for mom is the hand like that holding a wooden spoon. So it's different. I don't know if that's the American Sign Language or just what we had in my house.
That would be called what we call home sign. So you develop your kind of own way to communicate at home. That would definitely be your sign for home, for your mom at home.
Are there symbols that hearing people use with their hands that actually translate to slang for sign language?
There's actually a couple things that are pretty funny that we kind of joke about. I remember when I first started going to college, the movie The Grinch came out, the Jim Carrey one. And I was working at a movie theater while I was in college, and there's this huge poster of Jim Carrey in his Grinch costume going like this, like he would have been like stroking his chin.
Yeah.
And it can be misunderstood for the sign for lesbian. So every time I walked into work, I felt like Jim Carrey was just screaming lesbian at me, which was interesting. And then the other thing is that a lot of newscasters tend to stand with their hands like this. I'm sure you've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of crossing their fingers, they put the tips of their fingers together.
Yes, the hand vagina.
Yes,
I assume that's what that means.
Exactly what it is. It is the sign for vagina. So
whoa.
Does this mean
if you could get on that and get everybody to stop signing that would be great. Just tell them to fold their hands, fold your fingers, stop.
Maybe it's secret code.
Yeah, could be.
People are looking for any meaning.
Wow. So another reason to wash your hands frequently.
Yes.
Stacey, please.
You don't want things to get too funky.
No.
Down there.
Please tell
Definitely not.
Please tell me you saw my favorite sign language situation of all time. I think it was the funeral for Nelson Mandela, where the guy got up there who didn't know sign language. Could you make out anything he kept? So he kept doing this, like putting his hands to his chest.
He kept doing this.
Was he making?
And then doing this? No, he signed absolutely nothing that made any sense. And then another interesting one was down when Hurricane Harvey was going on. There was the gentleman in Florida. I don't know if anybody saw that.
No, I'm writing it down. Hurricane. What did he do?
Trevor Noah does a fantastic, he does a little clip on it because the guy was signing, the governor was telling people to evacuate. The storm is coming, get out of here. And the poor deaf people in Florida were seeing signs like man, bear, and pizza and mom and just absolute gibberish. And there was a huge outcry because he just absolutely had no idea what he was doing.
Oh, nice.
Where did he come from? How did that happen?
The story that we heard, which I don't know how verified it is, but the story we heard is that somebody heard that he had a deaf family member and that he knew a little bit of sign language. So they're like, hey, some sign language, come interpret this important press conference.
Oh, that's Florida. Wow. That's Florida for you. Here's another question we had watching the press conference, because it seems like a lot of people, not everybody, so that might be the reason why, has closed captions on their television, but I'm sure maybe important information is left out. Is that why that they need a signer and closed captioning?
Part of it. In other words, are not always accurate. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But deaf, do they prefer signing over closed caption? I don't know. I guess that's my assumption.
Some people do. If they're deaf and they consider themselves culturally deaf, meaning they use American Sign Language to communicate. And going back to the whole English is very different and structured very different. So trying to read the captioning, which are usually full of errors and wrong words and choppy and things that are left out. So if you think about it, if you took if you took French in high school, okay?
Oui.
And now there's this global pandemic and the only access you have to information is closed, crappy captioning in French. And that's how you're getting all of your information. You're not going to get a lot of the information. So seeing it in sign language, it's their first language. It's their native language. So they're going to understand it more. Well, do you have time for a quick story about the differences between the language?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it dirty?
Yeah,
hopefully. It's not, but it's humorous.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Sorry to disappoint. It was actually called to court, and there was a gentleman who said that he had gotten a ticket, and he kept telling me that his ticket was for a large dog, and it wasn't true. His dog wasn't large. And I was a little confused, and I kept asking, I was like, do you live in an apartment? Do you have rules in your city? Is it a pit bull? Do you have maybe ordinances that you can't have a specific kind of dog? And he kept saying, no, it's just the small mutt. It's 30 pounds, and could not figure out what this guy was there for. So we go into the courtroom, and the judge says, you've got a ticket for your dog being at large.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But because of the grammatical structure of ASL, they would have signed dog large, not large dog. So your dog at large, and the word at didn't translate. So he read that ticket as he got a ticket for his dog being large.
Oh, wow.
So I had to explain, no, dog at large, that word at has meaning. It changes the meaning. Was your dog out of your yard roaming around? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, that's why you got a ticket. So then I had to explain the judge on the language differences and things like that. So again, just everyday English is not always as clear as it could be in sign language. So how I would have signed a large dog is different than your dog at large.
It's really interesting watching you speak because you gesticulate. And I'm wondering, are you consciously signing while you're talking to us?
I am not. I'm sorry. My husband always yells pockets.
That's funny.
Now, Stacy, do you find that, so I'll cover a lot of court proceedings, and sometimes you see the stenographer, the court reporter who repeats things into a tape, which they must type up later, or just typing away. And I know they have a shorthand so they can keep up. But I'm wondering, do you ever get in a situation where somebody's just talking so fast, you're like, well, here's the deal. I'm behind. I got to just say, this guy said some shit, and stay safe, everybody.
You cannot.
But how do you keep up?
Well, that's why there's usually two people, just in case you're missing information. They can hold what you're missing and then feed it to you later. We say feed, but then they tell you what you missed. Especially in the court, you cannot just summarize what they're saying. The court is very specific about what you have to do and how we have to do it. We have to have a special endorsement and go through special training and all of that stuff. So if you get it, and it's funny because a lot of people, when they see that they're working with an interpreter, they'll look at me and they'll say, don't worry, I'm going to talk really slow for you. And honestly, I have an easier time interpreting for somebody who speaks fast than I do somebody who speaks slow.
Okay. And it doesn't help if they talk louder, right?
Talking louder does not help. It doesn't help anybody. Or if they move their mouth really, really exaggerated, it doesn't help either.
That's what my dad used to do when talking to someone who couldn't speak good English. It's like, why are you doing an Asian accent to this French guy? What are you talking about? Stacey, are your hands insured? Have you ever injured your hand?
I actually have. It's funny that you asked that. I had tendonitis of my index finger.
Well, that's got to affect your job.
It did. I was actually on a job, and unfortunately, I did not have a teamer that day, and they said it was going to be this short and simple, and it turned out to be this super long training. And the letter X is the letter X, like this, and the words that they were using over and over again had the letter X because it was computer systems.
Oh, God.
Because I had to keep doing this over and over. By the end of the day, 8 hours later, my finger was swollen and I could barely bend it. And my doctor still teases me about it to this day. He's like, you're the only person I've ever seen to have tendonitis of the index finger.
Oh, wow.
So does that become like a speech impediment where you can't, or a lisp where you can't quite move your hand the right way to say something?
It was. I ended up having to switch to my left hand, which is not as fluid as my right.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
And so talk about that for a second. Do you just need one hand to say all the words that you have to say?
Most signs are understood on just one hand. It's not as clear, obviously, but they can be understood.
So if I see somebody doing this, they're fake.
Correct.
Okay.
I hate.
Although interestingly enough, British Sign Language is very different than American Sign Language, and their alphabet uses two hands, where our alphabet only uses one.
Elitists. I hate the sign for dog, by the way. I don't know why. It just bothers me. Because don't you have to slap your knee?
Dog?
Yeah, but isn't there another one where you I don't know.
Pat your leg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
snap and pat.
You have a visitor.
Yeah, I do have a visitor. Sorry.
That's cute.
Looks like the boss is coming in. So, Stacey, we should probably let you get back to the family. But on behalf of your many, many fans, first before I do that, do you have a sense of how many people are actually hearing and understanding what the governor and the mayor and other people are saying based on your work? I mean, how big is that audience?
Actually, they just did a census in the state of Michigan. The Department of Civil Rights did this big needs assessment for all of the deaf people in Michigan. Hold on, please. And it turns out that I don't remember the statistics now, but if you go to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights website, all of the statistics on deaf people, hard of hearing, people who are also deaf and blind, and all of that information is there.
Okay.
Because I can't make up a number. I don't want to be wrong.
Wow. So you really haven't learned anything from the politicians.
I have not.
Maybe that's best.
Well, Stacey, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you. And on behalf of your many fans, please continue to maintain your hairstyle, because I'm worried with the executive order that if things start to get a little ratty, women across the country and my wife and her friends are going to say, you got to talk to Stacey.
It's so long. I cannot wait to get a haircut. I'm waiting, anxiously awaiting, just like everybody else.
And bangs are good or bad because of the eyebrows. You can do that or can't do that.
I cannot.
Okay. So bangs. I'm told bangs are out anyways. So
that's what I hear too. It's never a good decision.
Well, Stacey, thank you so much for joining us. Be safe on those drives up to Lansing, and hopefully we'll see you at the mayor's briefing one of these days when you start slumming with those of us here in the beautiful city of Detroit.
I love the beautiful city of Detroit. Thank you for having me, ML.
Is this thank you?
Yep,
thank you, Stacey.
Thank you,
Stacey.
Check that out.
Yeah. Thank you.
And this means you're a New York cabbie.
That is true.
Okay.
I have, Charlotte. She was a little slow speaking, and now we've done this with our other daughter, Char 6, Annie's 2. Taught him sign language, and man, it helps little kids communicate like crazy. So that's why I know please and thank you and cat and very simple things. I don't know.
What?
Cool story.
Teresa taught me sign language. Basically, when I see her picking up something heavy, I know that means she wants something. That's the only thing I understand.
That's the expression in her face that is signaling that to you.
She's a very effective communicator. I'll just say that.
Thank you, Stacey. Appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
I won't change my mind on anything, regardless of the facts that are set out before me. I'm dug in, and I'll never change.
Freight nut. Freight two. Freight nut. Freight two. Freight nut infinity. Freight two infinity plus one. No.
I was reading last week. We had a great discussion about Michael Jordan and the Bad Boys. If you missed last week's episode, please check it out at mlsoulofdetroit.com. You can also find past episodes at iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, pretty much anywhere quality listening is hosted. But we are debating Michael Jordan this week because he's trying to get out from under a statement he made many, many years ago when he was asked to get involved in the North Carolina governor's race. At that time, the mayor of Charlotte, a gentleman named Harvey Gantt, not the prosecutor from Batman, so just stop right now, was running for senator, and he was running against Jesse Helms, who had been the senator in North Carolina since they had slavery. And as far as I understand, he was disappointed that they had gotten rid of that. So this was a very, very critical race. It was a very close race. And Michael Jordan was asked why, as a North Carolinian, he was not making an endorsement in that race. By the way, Harvey Gantt was a black gentleman. So this was a pretty big issue for people of color in North Carolina and really around the country. And Michael Jordan's response was, Republicans buy sneakers too. When I heard that, it reminded me a little bit of LeBron James basically not backing up the NBA executive who was critical of China for their suppression of free speech. And it got me thinking, you know, I like it when athletes don't try and tell me what to think, but is there a time when athletes may be obligated or should feel an obligation to let us know what they think about of important issues of the day? I know Sean feels very strongly about this, but apparently that Mondo burrito he had also has him feeling strongly about some other things. So, Sean, I've never agreed with you more.
But I want to ask you, you think that
he's back.
Who are you to decide when they speak up and when they don't speak up?
I'm just a guy who they want to pay, in Jordan's case, hundreds of dollars for sneakers, or hundreds of dollars to take my family to watch him dribble around and hang his tongue out.
And you don't have to do that, and he doesn't have to speak out in politics if he didn't want to. Whatever his motivation is, be it money or otherwise.
Sure. Well, I think in this case the issue isn't so much that we expect him to speak out; it's that he's tried to get out from under these comments for 30 years now, but or 20 years, whatever it is. But it's that feeling of, you know, I may have an opinion about this, but for the right price, I'll keep my mouth shut. And I think I have a real problem with people taking their principles and burying them beneath their checkbook.
Maybe he didn't care to get involved in politics. Maybe he doesn't think politically. I mean, it's hard to believe that with the Jesse Helms Gantt race, but I don't know. Like you just said, we hear everything from every athlete. Maybe it's kind of nice that someone does, you know, it's very comparable not only to LeBron, like you mentioned with China, but Tom Brady wouldn't talk about the Donald Trump hat in his locker room because he's a friend, because he doesn't want to wallow in that, because frankly, can you win? Could Tom Brady win going into a debate like that? No, I don't think so.
You're always going to make half of the audience mad. And I guess the question is it 49% or 51%? But with Jordan saying that, I was only kidding, I just don't get that. I think you either own the comments and you move on instead of, if you were kidding, then. So
you don't think it was a throwaway comment on a bus, like he said?
Maybe it was. I don't know. This is why I try to bring in the big guns.
And now that he's back,
and there's no one who has a larger bore, and that's a measure of a muzzle than Sean Windsor.
Well, I guess I am the damsel in distress, as you introduced. The way you introduced me at the beginning of the show, I'm sorry I held it as long as I could before I had to go take care of that. But I don't know. Sorry about that. What are we talking about, man? Look, Tom Brady is not part of a group of folks that are oppressed in this country. So first of all, I don't buy that argument at all.
Fair.
I think I have mixed feelings, and I hate to say that. I know Elric's going to say, right, you always do. President Obama made some made a couple of comments in the documentary the other night about this, right? That, yes, Jordan disappointed a lot of folks within the black community when he did that or when he wouldn't do that. And to this day, and just reading the reaction, reading some stories the last few days, you can see and hear the disappointment is still there to some degree. However, what President Obama mentioned, and I think this is also a very fair point, that black folks are held to a different standard, right? So you almost have to be perfect. And so there's pressure to do that. And Obama talked about, obviously, with himself, you can't make mistakes in the same way. That's their perception. And he was projecting that onto to Jordan's decision back in the 80s, I guess. By the way, his mother had asked him to step into because she was politically motivated. Mm-hmm. So it was Jordan's own mother asking him to do that. And in the documentary, maybe the first installment or the second installment, he talked about how racist it was to grow up in Wilmington in North Carolina and how he wanted to get out of there, and then wouldn't in turn go and talk about Helms and the destruction he had brought upon race relations in that state. So I think that it's layered and complex in that way.
Well, I think he gets a lot of crap for it because of the comment, Republicans buy sneakers too. Everyone's like, oh, he's just in it for the money. So I guess it really goes to whether or not you believe that what his motivation was for saying that.
Well, first of all, I want to refute something Sean said about Tom Brady. Billionaires are getting a lot of criticism these days, so he is part of a beleaguered minority. But I think your point about there being a deeper issue here that really called for Jordan to weigh in is right on, and I think it also kind of brings us back to our Biden discussion, where now you're hearing women being criticized for not being harder on Joe Biden because of these allegations that he may have assaulted somebody. There's this perverse cultural twist where we pillory people who've been oppressed for not being more outspoken about being oppressed, but then if they're not outspoken enough, we say we criticize them for that too. So first of all, you get downtrodden. And then if you're not lighting the world on fire and running around, throwing bombs, then you get criticized for not being out there enough. It's almost like a no-win situation, and that drives me crazy.
Well, that was Obama's point to some degree. And by the way, Mark...
And Obama was criticized all the time for not doing enough, right? I mean, first black president, and people are saying, you could do more. He's like, I'm the first black president. What more can I do? What do you want, a kidney? Come on.
And to your point about Tom Brady, Mark, I mean, think about it. He had the Trump hat, whatever. Maybe he leans to the right politically. Are there any white folks out there who are upset that he didn't speak out? I mean, when does that ever happen when it's a white athlete that's not taking a stance? Because there's no sense that he represents all white folks or most white folks, that he has to do it, and therefore he's letting white folks down if he's not speaking up. That just doesn't happen. It's just it's not the same. So
Giselle told me he bends to the left.
So Jordan has to be the spokesperson for all black people?
No, I'm not saying that. It's not for my place to say that. I'm saying that's how it's seen and viewed in large parts of the black community, though, right? That you're represented because they're a minority community.
Is there
and that's the difference.
Oh, I don't know the timing behind it, but a lot of people remember the famous ad with Barkley, "I am not a role model." Remember that ad? Maybe.
Yeah, did that come out before or after the DUI?
Well, maybe there's a feeling there that maybe they just want to play basketball and make money and not get into this because you can't win. And Rob Parker wrote a really good column, and I love Rob. I think Rob's a good guy, and he's comparing Jordan and that whole situation to LeBron and how LeBron spoke out about Trayvon Martin, about Eric Gardner. He spoke out against President Trump, but he didn't mention that when it came to China. Oh, he did mention it a little bit, but when it came to China, he was mute. And that, to me, is even worse than what Jordan did by a mile.
No, I read that column. Rob Parker's point was that him saying silent about China, which has nothing to do with the black community, by the way, in this country, doesn't undo all the social justice work LeBron has done before that. But beyond all, I mean, to me, that was Rob Parker's point. But, but beyond all that, again, it gets back to this idea. I think is what you're saying, Mark, is How fair is that really? That if you have that kind of success, that you have to speak for your larger community. White folks are allowed to not speak or speak, and they don't get criticized one way or the other for it.
Yeah.
White. I'm talking about athletes. I'm talking about professional, like you mentioned, Tom Brady. Nobody cares if he says anything or not. It's just not, when Jordan didn't speak, Jim Brown was all over him, right?
Well,
and a lot of other folks.
And maybe that's why, because you come out, post Muhammad Ali, not post. I mean, it was still going on, but the big push in the late 60s and 70s. I forget what that group was in Cleveland, where they spoke out. Right. Jim Brown was part of it, and I don't know if Kareem or Lou Alcindor at that time was there. So I think there just was that expectation for Jordan to say something. But I feel like now we're applying 2020 rules to something that happened 30 years ago, and I don't think that's fair for Jordan.
Well, to put a fine point on this, fair to Jordan or not, I guess my feeling on this is, if you have something to say, if you can contribute to the debate, you shouldn't let the decision on whether to weigh in be whether or not it's going to affect your bottom line. So, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, say what you have to say, but don't hold your tongue because you're worried that somebody may hold your credit rating too.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Once again, competition for Geek of the Week honors is fierce. Our first competitor is an Alabama man who was arrested for camping on Discovery Island at Walt Disney World while the park was closed. This zoological park with aromatic trees and walk-through aviaries closed in 1999, but Johnny Diaz of the New York Times reports that Richard McGuire decided he'd hang out there during the pandemic because it looked like a tropical paradise.
Brilliant.
Still, that's not enough to get you honors. No. The competition is fierce. We have our friend Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who called the coronavirus lockdowns fascist and said people should get back their GD freedom. Well, that may be a fair point of view, and it's one we've certainly heard expressed in this state, usually at the point of an AR-15. But Fayez Siddiq of the Washington Post reports that Musk launched into this during an earnings call. And it's possible that one of the reasons he was so incensed is because that the pandemic has forced the shutdown of his factory just as it was ramping up production of its Model Y, the crossover vehicle it expects to be his best-selling product. So again, do we have principle over money? And with Elon, who also, I guess, hasn't done very much with his ventilator promise and certainly didn't do too much with his mini sub either. So Elon, put a sock in it, whether it's battery powered or not. Still not enough to get you the title. Another competitor, a strong competitor, especially for me who believes in truth over everything. I don't care whether I agree with you on your politics or not. Once you lie to me, I'm out. Well, 15 minutes after promising not to lie, President Trump's new press secretary made an obviously false claim about a former Trump official who had admitted to lying. Philip Bump of the Washington Post reports that new White House press secretary Kayleigh McEnany told a reporter, "I will never lie to you. You have my word on that." But 15 minutes later, I guess that word wasn't worth very much. Still, this week's Geek of the Week is the IRS, which is telling parents who did not get their $500 per child grant, their support, that it won't arrive until next year because in the rush to get this money out, they didn't have all their stuff together. So you may have gotten your $1,200, but if you do your $500 per kid, you're going to have to wait. Because why? Why would you need money now? What's the big deal? Just wait till next year. Yeah, well, let me tell you something. It's that kind of thinking, IRS, that wins you our honor as Geek of the Week.
The kids are soft.
I don't care for that guy.
Me neither. Too soft.
I'm going to pretend like you need to just make my dick go soft.
Some new imaging for you.
All right. I like it.
It's fantastic. Mr. Matthew Jennings, editor of Soft Magazine, with This Week in Soft History. My friend, what have you got for us?
Okay, here's what we got this week in soft history. In 1952, Mr. Potato Head was the first toy to advertise on television. Mr. Potato Head, one of the dumbest toys possibly ever. Yeah. If anything, it proves that bad ideas sometimes work out. And by the way, thanks for bringing me on, ML.
Yes, Mr. Potato Head was the stupidest looking person in all video until we started going live on Facebook.
Hey, keep trashing things that brought millions of children joy.
That toy sucks.
But that's okay.
That toy sucks, man. You don't think so, Sean?
Anything you have to open up and shove in a butt.
Oh yeah, I know you guys want to use anything you have to use your imagination with and reconfigure and get you to look at life in a slightly different way. I can see why none of you.
Oh, it's a piece of crap.
Imagination. You put the ears in the ear hole. You put the nose in the nose hole. You put the mouth in the mouth hole. What's the imagination?
You can reconfigure it. You know what I mean? It's like an abstract painting, right? A little bit of surrealism, maybe.
I got a question for Mark, though.
Yes,
Mark,
please.
Do you have any favorite toys growing up? Wait, don't answer that. This is a family show.
The adult toys are better.
Okay, and let's move on. In 2000,
Please.
Rod Stewart had a 1-hour operation to remove a growth in his throat.
Oh, man.
The growth was tested, and it turns out he just needed his stomach pumped.
I thought the growth was David Bowie.
Actually, my old joke was going to be Elton John's testicle, but I wasn't going to say that out loud.
What's the first thing? But you just did.
Oops.
But what's the first?
Oh crap!
What's the first thing people think of with Rod Stewart now? It's the urban legend, isn't it?
I thought it was Elton John.
Really?
Yeah.
Am I the only one that thinks of the urban legend with Rod Stewart?
I always heard David Bowie.
Do you know the urban legend?
I always heard Rod Stewart, but I was living in Illinois Central, so
we once had
Bible Belt.
We once had Rachel Hunter. You guys, she was married to him.
Yes, she was married to Rod Stewart for a while. She was in some of his videos too.
And I just want to point out, she told us that not only is she aware of it, but Rod was very aware of the urban legend of him getting his stomach pumped. Which, how could you not? But that was pre-internet, so I'm sorry. Carry on. I digress.
Okay, well, in 2006, the Dave Matthews Band agreed to pay $200,000 after their tour bus dumped human waste on a boatload of tourists in Chicago, making it the second worst release by any band ever.
And the first worst release was also by the Dave Matthews Band.
Close. R. Kelly.
Oh, yeah, true. That's good point. Good point, man.
Watch any story, listen to any story about L. Kelly, and you know what kind of waste got released.
Yes, no, I put Dave Matthews up there with one of the artists I don't really like, but I respect because when he puts on a show, he puts everything into it. So I was working as a beer man at Comerica Park for the Dave Matthews show there about, 15 years ago. I made so much money because he played forever. And so you get to the end of the show and we're still selling beer because they don't cut you off with like at a ball game. And near the very top of the center field bleachers or whatever you'd call them there's a couple having sex. And so I didn't get too close. I kept my social distance and I said, can I get you guys a couple beer? And the guy's like, no. I'm like, so you take your woman to a ball game. You basically go to town and you're not going to buy her a drink. So Dave Matthews, good job. Dave Matthews fans, you got to buy a lady a beer.
Well, you just found a new Geek of the Week.
There's statute of limitations on that. But
well, that's too bad. Well, how about this? Let's finish up with in 2011. Osama bin Laden was killed by the formidable Special Forces Unit SEAL Team 6. Yeah. Just think, bin Laden would still be alive today if he had been hiding in the shower.
Did that compound even have a shower?
Yeah, it was the House of Skank. It's probably got a bucket full of something. It's probably not water.
I mean, I don't know, but it didn't seem like Osama showered very often. That's just how long ago was that?
2011.
My God, that seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
I know. Almost a decade after 9/11, which is pretty interesting.
Well, his aversion to water may be explained by the bath SEAL Team 6 gave him when they dropped him off of that Navy ship on their way back home. So
that's where he's
so that
buried.
was this week in soft history. Osama got his this week.
Wait, I got to do my outro.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, but I just want to get the context. This is a pretty good week then for bad guys.
Yeah,
it's a very good week for bad guys.
Excellent.
All right, now here's my outro. I'm so excited to do this.
Oh boy.
And that's your This Week in Soft History. I'm Mr. Potato Head. I mean, Matt Jennings on ML Soul of Detroit, part of the Red Shovel Network.
Oh, wow. How professional.
Wow. That's
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So this month we're going to feature bass players in room 7609, and I think people don't think of new wave music. I think you're telling yourself there's a lot of synth, there's a lot of program stuff, there's a lot of stuff people are doing with the keyboard. Well, my friends, I'm here to set the record straight. There are some outstanding bass players and some magnificent bass lines in new wave music. And this week we're going to start off Bass Month, brought to you by Elric Bass Guitars. If you're looking for a handmade custom bass, you can go to elric.com. I am not paid to sponsor this show. In fact, I found some money from the state treasurer's office for my brother, and he didn't even buy me a beer, so I'm not even looking for any money there. But Bass Week here in Room 7609 is brought to you by Elric Bass Guitars, which you can check out at elric.com. And we're going to start with Paul Young and one of his fantastic songs called Come Back and Stay.
I shut my eyes and I fantasize that you're here with me. Will you ever return? I won't be satisfied till you're by my side. Don't wait any longer. Come back.
Why don't you come back? Please hurry. Why don't you come back? Please hurry.
Come back and stay for good this time.
Did you
come back and stay for good this time? When you said goodbye, I was trying to hide what I felt inside till you passed me by. You said you'd return. You said that you'd be mine till the end of time. But don't wait any longer. Why don't you come back?
Please hurry. Why don't you come back? Please hurry.
Come back and stay for good this time.
Did you
come back and stay for good this time? Change your mind. If you wanna stay mine, just love me forever. Love me forever.
Why don't you come back? Please hurry. Why don't you come back? Please hurry. Why don't you come back? Please hurry. Why don't you come back? Please hurry.
Just come back and stay for good this time.
Did you
come back and stay for good this time? Come back and stay for good this time.
Did you
come back and stay for good this time?
Ego and
Paul Young, if you didn't know him, was a blue-eyed soul pop artist from England in the early 80s who had a band that he called the Royal Family. And his backup singers were called the Fabulous Wealthy Tarts. So that was definitely a different era. But he was a fairly benign guy, nice set of pipes, good looking, had kind of a crazy coif, couldn't touch Stacy. In the hair contest, he's definitely a silver medal, and it's not by it's not even a photo finish, but a very nice singer. He had hits mainly with cover songs. That song, Come Back and Stay, was by Jack Lee. You probably know him from Every Time You Go Away, which was a Hall & Oates tune originally. Wherever I Lay My Hat, which Marvin Gaye originally recorded. And one of my favorite covers by him is I'm Gonna Tear Your Playhouse Down, which was done by Ann Peebles. Of course, everybody remembers Ann Peebles, whoever the hell that was. But what made Paul Young really stand out was the bass player. If you listen to that, the bass, it bends, it stretches, it's emotive in a way that you're not used to hearing. And that is because of the singular talent of Giuseppe Henry Palladino, which with a name like that, you'll find it hard to believe that he's from Cardiff, Wales, better known as Pino Palladino. He's one of the greatest bass players in modern music. He plays a fretless bass, which allows him to make those moans and those stretches and give it that voice. But he was so talented and so in demand that he not only played early in the new wave and pop movement with Paul Young, but he replaced John Entwistle 3 days after he died and toured with The Who.
Wow.
And he has played with just about everybody you can think of. I've always wondered why the hell did he stick around with Paul Young, who had a nice career, but wasn't as big a deal as a lot of the other acts who were calling for Pino's services. One reason maybe because he married one of those fabulous wealthy tarts. And so that kept him in the royal family perhaps longer than he would have otherwise stayed there.
Huh. That's interesting. It's a cool song. I like that bass line.
Yeah, you really hear it play almost like a lead guitar, and it takes that song, and like any great cover, it takes a cover song and makes it the artist's own. Paul Young is an interesting guy. That's also Come Back and Stay as a terrific video. And the irony of that video is he met his wife, Stacy Smith, while filming the video. And the video tells a story of a heartbroken young man who tries to get back the woman who left him after he started cheating on her. Well, in real life, Stacy Smith left Paul Young in 2006 for a younger man. They reconciled in 2009, and he is now raising her love child after she died of brain cancer in 2018. So Come Back and Stay, I guess goes both ways. So that's a little this week in soft bass playing new wave history for you here in Room 7609. We're going to have some more great tunes for the rest of the month in Room 7609. Please, when we play them, listen for the way that bass gets out front and really, really takes over. It's a beautiful thing.
Sean, did you like it?
Yeah, it was fabulous.
Was it fabulous and wealthy?
I like it because you like it, Mike.
Now that's the kind of spirit we're looking here.
I want you to be happy. I want you to
7609. So it's just about time for.
It was nice. It was soothing. It was nice.
Okay. Well, it's just about time for me to roll out for the mayor's daily briefing. Before we go, we want to reach out and tell you we appreciate you listening. We hope that we're helping you get through this pandemic, making it a little bit easier. And we want to thank you for your feedback. You can write to us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. You can give us a call and leave a voicemail at 313-288-9070. That's 313-Butterfield-8. 9070. We are now up to more than 460 reviews, ratings. We really appreciate those. Here's what some of our most recent evaluators have said. Yeah says, great show except the intro.
What?
There's no explanation for that. I don't know why Yeah says that, but we're gonna stick with the positive.
And the energy put into those intros.
They're fantastic. I mean, it's beautiful. Ponky Knot says, I look forward to every episode. The A2 Ford guy says, love the back and forth between ML and Sean. You should bring Charlie LaDuff on every so often just for the banter. Love the music at the end of the show. It's expanded my playlist.
Ooh.
And so we're glad to hear from the A2 Ford guy. I'm assuming that's Ann Arbor. And I know it's not Sean because he doesn't work at Ford. And we'd like to also thank our donors. You can donate to the show. Mark, how do people give us their dough?
MLSoloDetroit.com is the website. And on the little menu bar, it says, believe it or not, donate. And all you have to do is click there. It's going to take you to PayPal.
So if you donate as an added incentive, when you go to make a donation on PayPal, there's a spot for you to put a note on there. If you put a note on there, if you donate at least $20 to the show, and there's lots of good causes, so I'm not saying you should give us money before a charity, but if you're Tom Brady or you've recently been hit in the head by a mallet and you want to donate, put a note in there. And we're going to do something we're calling Cami-Soul. It's sort of like Cameo, where you pay somebody a nominal fee to say happy birthday to somebody or make some sort of well wishes, or maybe it's you want us to do the message on your voicemail, whatever. Leave a message on there, and we will read that on the show. We're going to be, we're pretty much going to say anything, but there may be some limits.
Yeah,
don't test the limits.
You can make Sean say anything you want.
There you go. Like Mike Elrick is the kindest, most
donations,
wisest, amazing human being I've ever met.
He's gonna make the most donations. ML.
That's the best $20 I ever spent. So here's some people who donated out of the goodness of their hearts. April, we want to thank Rudolph. We want to thank Frank. We want to thank Kristen. We want to thank Richard. We want to thank Mark, who says, ML, been living in Massachusetts for years. Listened to you for a long time on Drew and Mike and love the way you do what you do. I'm a fellow MSU alum and an out-of-state football season ticket holder. Would love to shake your hand one day when we can go back for a game once a year. Get well, be well, and look forward to hearing more. Glad I finally got around to giving back. And I hope we can meet there in East Lansing this year. Anthony, a very, very special thank you, and you know why. David, Rebecca, thank you. Rebecca says, I never miss an episode of your podcast. Respect. Rebecca Green, she is a registered nurse from Trenton. So, Rebecca, thank you for everything you do. And Frank, a double giver in April. So thank you very much. So please continue to give. And if you want us to give you a shout out, $20 gets the conversation started. We'd also like to thank longtime sponsor Zott. Zott car dealerships are back in business. They're selling cars. They're repairing cars. To find out more, go to dealsinthed.com. We appreciate what they're doing to keep you on the road and to keep the economy going. And if you want to make a donation and get something for your money, you can purchase some of our fine merchandise. You may have seen Sean's sons looking particularly handsome in those hockey jerseys. We still have some hockey jerseys left. We're getting low on T-shirts, and we still have Kwame Sutras, and we have stickers. Mark, if somebody wants to get something for their money, how do they do that?
DrewandMikeStore.com. You can see all the merchandise there. As Matt is displaying his right now, he's fully decked out and all, tons of gear.
Look at that. Matt looks fantastic. Matt, can you flourish those many fine items for us again?
Yes, sir. It actually just came in.
Really?
As you guys were talking. Yeah, at the end of the show, it came in.
Does it have coronavirus on it?
I pulled everything out. I got all these stickers.
Beautiful. And
this awesome trucker hat, which they have tons of still. And this polo shirt.
Well, I was worried with where you were going there. Okay.
He stood up. Yeah.
Let's get our kicks above the waistline, sunshine, as Murray Head said in One Night in Bangkok. Another great new wave show. Well, it's just about time for me to go see Mayor Duggan's daily do. Gentlemen, anything to say before we turn it over to Cyrus?
Be safe.
And a pleasure as always.
Yeah. Nice to meet you again, Stacy.
Okay, so keep listening, Joe. Thanks for keeping it all together there at the Brain Trust. You've been listening to ML Soul of Detroit on the Red Shovel Network. Please check out our other shows, which include the No BS News Hour with Charlie LaDuff, No Filter Sports with Eli, Denny, and Bob, and of course, the folks who make it possible, the Drew and Mike podcast. You have been listening to ML Soul of Detroit on the Red Shovel Network. Cyrus, get me downtown.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Next week, when you tune our way for another adventure of
ML Elric,
you'll hear...
Hey, look, Barney, what was the idea of dragging me into this doorway when that car came up?
Boy, Mr.
ML Elric.
Did you see him turn around and beat it when he started getting to work?
What works? What happened?
Oh, we figured you might be followed when you left the Swede, so the...
Soul of Detroit.
Already on the roof with ash cans, bricks, cans of garbage, stuff like that. Boy, they let him have it.
I suppose I should say thanks.
Ah, nothing to it. Say, what'd you find out about Danny?
Nothing much, kid. Except that there are at least 2 characters who'd do anything to keep me from finding out.
Well, don't you worry. They won't. Not with a
Soul of Detroit
on the job.